I started out my career pretty much as an entrepreneur, but grew up in Nigeria. Um, I was fortunate to have started two businesses that grew up to be leaders in their own spaces in Nigeria. One is Jobberman, which is a jobs website, which most people know about. The other is Host, which is a web hosting company, and the largest in the indigenous space in Nigeria in that space. And we moved to the US in 2019 to explore more opportunities. I think at some point I will talk a little bit more about why I made that decision. Austin specifically, now I am a senior product manager at Indeed. I lead a couple of interesting projects there. And I am still an entrepreneur. Once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. So I'm currently working on a digital bank for the diaspora as well.
That's great. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. I'll be very interested to learn more about why you moved to the US. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about product management? For people that are not familiar with this field, what would you say, or how would you describe what product management is?
Great. So product management is an interesting role from a career point of view. I like to say it's that role that is needed. At the same time, if you're not there, life would continue to, to go on. So product managers basically manage the product lifecycle of product and projects, as it were. There's a huge distinction between product and project management, by the way. I will talk a little bit more about that later. So when I say lifecycle, we're talking about like ideation. So thinking about, hey, should this thing exist? Why should it exist? What should we build? To strategizing on like the business model, the pricing, how to take it to market, how the product should even look or feel, or what problem should it solve, right? To the product development itself, the process of developing it, working with engineers, working with artisans. If it were like let's assume it was furniture, for example, right? Pretty much whoever you need to build the product, working with them to make it happen. And then after the product is built, then we have product marketing, which is like, how do you take that product to market? How do you grow the product in the market? How do you get a first set of customers? How do you sell? How do you differentiate yourself, right? Product managers, like I said, are not necessarily in there, because I've seen teams where an engineer, an analyst, we just kind of work together and just build something, right? It's not necessarily the best way to build, but yeah, they will still build something regardless. Product managers bring like that expertise of being able to combine all of those skill sets together, helps put a strong team together and help lead them from like zero to success. Product managers are really useful when a product is doing well, and more importantly, when a product is doing very badly, right? They can do a lot of work in helping to turn around that product. Lastly, what's the difference in product management and project management? A project manager needs to just make sure tasks and initiatives are going smoothly as they are, right? That's not the work of a product manager, right? It goes beyond tasks. There's what I would say domain knowledge needed in product management. There is also strategy, making decisions of whether the project should even continue or not, right? Deciding when it's time to move and face a different direction. Deciding when to add one or two new features, right? Meanwhile, a project manager just wants to get a thing done, right? So I think those are like two differences. Project manager is responsible for getting stuff done. A product manager is responsible for making sure stuff is successful. So yeah, that's it.
Thanks for that distinction. So your background, I don't know if you touched on this, but what are the skills and the educational background that you need to get into this space and succeed in that space? Do you need to have a core tech background? I believe you studied computer engineering. Is that a requirement to do well here, or are there other skills that you think people should prioritize?
Yeah, that's one of the interesting part of product management. Because the key goal here is to make the product successful, right? There's really not like, say, one size fits all way to define the skill sets that are needed. So from a degree point of view, actually any degree holder can be a product manager, right? I've met product managers that are lawyers, medical doctors. I've met those who like studied arts, history, Spanish, English. Think of it, right? Mathematics, right? But what's most important is that all of them have at least two skills. They are all creative in some way or form. right? And they are also very analytical. Like I mentioned earlier, because a product manager is responsible for the success of a product, their decision-making skills come in very handy. You need to be able to make decisions between two or more different options, right? At each point in time, a product manager is some sort of mini CEO. You are the CEO of your product, right? So you need to like make decisions. So being analytical is very important. Logical reasoning, very important. Domain knowledge also important, but domain knowledge can vary, right? A product manager at Uber is different from a product manager at Facebook or a product manager at Google, right? Even within Google, 100 product managers will have different skill sets, right? Depending on what they're working on. And even if you're working on the same product, depending on the part where you're focusing on, right? Some might be more creative than others, right? Some will be more analytical than others. So degree-wise, anything goes, really. What's most important is interest in being able to create a product, ability to create product vision, ability to also manage a product from like zero or during the product development process, and then ability to understand how to grow the product. Some people don't have it all, right? And also like in large companies, you don't really need to have it all, right? Very few product managers even get to handle product end to end in large companies, right? Some people can just be handling monetization. Someone is handling marketing, product marketing. Someone is handling strategy. Someone is handling maybe fraud, or payments. It depends on the size of the product, size of the company. Things it can go really deeper, and the domain knowledge to do that work will become, of course, a bit larger.
That's interesting. So it sounds like, product management is everything. If you want to build a product, you want to build a service, it's all encompassing. So why and how did you get product management in your case?
Can you take that again?
So why and how did you get into product management?
Okay, in my own case, I never really even understood that what I was doing was product management, right? So I started as a entrepreneur, and I think the early seeds were planted while I was in Opeyemi Awoyemi University, where I was a graphics designer. So being a graphics designer can be very interesting, especially in a campus where people will come to you with different ideas. Like, hey, I want to do a seminar. I want to do an event. I want to do a flyer for a class I want to do, or a product I just started, or I'm selling computers, I want to do a flyer, right? And in a lot of cases, they're not even sure what they want to be on that simple flyer. So you have to start thinking for them. Should they have their logo? Should they have their address? Should they have pricing? Are they putting the pricing well? Should they offer something else, a discount, right? Should there be a phone number there, or should there not be a phone number for specific reasons? So you kind of start to think through like, how best could I design this in a way to make it successful? So I think those were like the early seeds. As I moved on, I started web designing, became stronger in terms of like, hey, what should be on this website? What should not be on this website? Then I moved to like building digital businesses. Google Host, I built Google Host. I built a couple of other ones that failed, a property portal, a classifieds, etc. Built Jobberman as well, where you started thinking like as a founder, you're the number one product manager. You have to think through everything from how do we go to market? How do I make my cost cheaper? What would the market buy? Where are my customers? And all of that. So I kind of just learned it through the path of entrepreneurship, right? As Jobberman grew, then I started to realize that what I was doing was product management, and I started specializing. In those early days, product management was not really a strong discipline, especially in Africa. So most of my learnings were online. There were a couple of blogs, should I say, strong guys like Marty Kagan is one of the most respected people in product management today. Eric Chris, who the Lean Canvas, Lean Startup, who did a lot of work on that. Analytics and B testing, I did a lot of work on that. So those were like the tutors I relied on, right? And that was how I kind of found myself in product management. So it moved from just being a founder to focus on engineering, then focusing on marketing. I did a lot of marketing and digital growth, then moved on to product management in itself.
That's very, very, very experienced all the way from graphic design. But I guess those are the skills that you need to develop if you do want to eventually build products. And so I
Yes.
guess since everybody is to not despise what you're doing now, because you don't know what skills you will get that would eventually help you get into the role that you want to be in eventually.
Good point.
All right. So based on your experience mentoring people, I know you mentioned that you've assisted some people to get into this PM role. What is the typical journey of a product manager? And then how can others, as international students, what are some things that they can start to pick up now or prepare for if they do want to get into product management eventually?
Yeah, I think product strategy is like the first phase. You need to learn product strategy, and learning product strategy is kind of tricky. There are books for product strategy, right? Having an MBA, for example, will teach you a lot about product strategy. There's also part of product strategy that you can learn in a class or in a book, right? You have to kind of learn it by actual building products. You take a product to the market and it fails, right? And you have to figure out how do you pivot, how do you change, how do you make sure like the next product does not fail, you know? So those are things you can learn in school. But product strategy is like the key part. Um, the best way is start building products on your own if you don't even have access, like you're not in a company or something. Start building products, do a small startup, a side hustle, do an initiative, just kind of learn the ropes of thinking through something. Like, hey, I want to start this thing. There's nothing today, zero. How do I take from 0 to 1, right? How is it going to work? Like building those, think of a product manager as a builder as well. So like think about like the building blocks. How will the 3D at the end look? You have the 3D in your mind, and then you work through like building it to that point we now have to sell the product. So getting good at that in whichever way or form, either in digital or in even things that are not digital, would help you to kind of build those, should I say, muscles of product strategy. That's one. After you build those muscles, I think it's also important to spend a lot of time reading about product strategy of other companies. Blogs really helped me. I read a lot of TechCrunch. Facebook is starting. Why is Facebook big? How does Facebook do what it does? So there was this book I read, then Platform Effects, which really helped me to kind of understand why when Facebook decided to launch a wall, their feed, when they shut it down, why are they doing all of that? It gives you a lot of insight into how product managers think and how they think to grow their products. There's also an interesting book I saw lately. I bought it for a couple of people as well. It's called Swipe to Unlock. It kind of Swipe to Unlock is a very simple book that just kind of teaches you like, hey, this is how these companies think about strategy, right? From a product point of view. So it's a very good book for people that who don't have any clue into how product management works in tech companies, right? It gives you a very good insight. So after you've done all of that, it might also help you to go to a product school if you have a chance, or try and get an internship in a company where they're about to start a new product or where they're about to manage a product, right? Those hands-on experience are gold. It's gold, right? You can't get it better than actually practice. A lot of people that even never learned product management as a skill, discipline, or whatever, all they did was actually work on a product and you just learn through the ropes. So I think getting that hands-on opportunity caps it all. You should get that as well. Those will help you.
That's great information. And so I think it's important to also emphasize that you started from Nigeria and you grew Jobberman into the biggest job platform in Africa. So what are some challenges that you faced working in the industry? I know you mentioned that product management was not a thing back then, but what are some challenges that you faced in the industry, and how can other people, learn from some challenges or errors that you made and also position themselves for success?
Okay, I think the first one is product management as a discipline itself is very innovative, in the sense that tricks or rules that work this year might not work next year. It's even coupled with the fact that innovation itself now, it's like evolving like super fast. When you think about Moore's law and how even chips are getting smaller and all of that, right? Innovations that you thought were like, hey, this is fiction 2 years ago is not like super real today. So you need to be able to learn from others. Also, like go internally yourself and kind of like come up with like, should I say, your own vision of what the future is likely going to look like, and lead your product into that. There's no way of you getting any information anywhere else. So you just kind of need to just evolve fast. Even as you see trends, before the trends become like very real and become like fully adopted, you have to think through it. So it's a lot of work in that sense. You trying to always catch up with innovation, right? And that's one. The second thing is product management itself is not standardized, right? There's, like I said, there's really no formula for like this is exactly what a product manager is, So you just have to always figure out your way through. And like in Nigeria, when there was no strong product management network, today there are strong product management networks in Nigeria. There's Utiva that does product school and a couple of other groups. There's even product school in Nigeria now, Then like you just have to kind of figure it. So that was tough. That's on the product side. On the product itself, meaning Jobberman in this case, right? There were a lot of issues. Initially, the first issue was even the inability to scope the size of the market. I could remember a day when I thought like, hey, what are we doing here? How many jobs are we in this country? Like we took the Guardian newspaper, we counted the number of jobs. We're like, if you charge 5,000 naira per each of these jobs, this doesn't really add up. Like, let's go and do something else, But we kind of kept on, and we discovered that there was a lot of employers that can't use the Guardian, don't use the Guardian, right? And just use word of mouth, or are just helpless, and they just kind of like posters and different kind of stuff. And over time, we started deepening the market. We saw the fact that we actually had more jobs that were in the system, but they weren't just being surfaced. That kind of taught me customer development. Like you really need to go deeper into the market, talk to who you think is your customer, try and understand how they behave, what they want, and then you can build for that as well. Also, growth in general, especially in the case of Jobberman, where it was a two-sided marketplace that we're building. So we've got job seekers on one side, employers on one side. Job seekers will not join if there are no jobs. Employers will not come if there are no job seekers, right? So how do you undo that? So thinking through that, and solving that problem. Let me just give you a trick. The real truth is, to solve that problem is figure a way how to convert your two-sided marketplace into a one-sided marketplace. Fake the other side of the marketplace. Solve one side and then you come and solve the other side. So it sounds simple, but it's really hard in practice to do, depending on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to be the marketplace, But figuring it out took a lot of time. We eventually figured it out. I think one problem we never figured out really was monetization. We grew so big as a business, but we were more of a brand than a business in that sense. Monetization is difficult in Africa, understandably. Let's face it, a lot of people are poor, right? And even companies are also poor. Like an SME in the US is a large company in Nigeria, So those realities get to bite you when you're trying to build a business or a startup or a product in Nigeria, So figuring that was a bit hard for us. I'm a better person today, but to do some stuff again in Nigeria, I will definitely do a bit differently. But those were just to kind of cap it up. Those were the challenges we faced.
I think that's interesting. I love the piece about monetization, and I'm going to come back to that. But to solve your two-sided market problem, which side did you choose, if you're willing to share that?
How we solved the job seeker problem. That was easier to solve, right? Job seekers, everybody needs a job, right? Whether it's a new job or a better job, right? So once we solved the job seeker problem, it was easier to get the employers. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we did.
That's in the second part of the session. But for monetization, you mentioned it being more of a brand than a business. So in that situation, how would you say you went about? I mean, you still have employees that you need to pay, right? And they're not going to hear that we're not making money this month. They want to collect their salary. So how did you go around solving that problem of you're more of a brand and it's difficult to monetize? One, because of the just the situation of the economy in Nigeria and in Africa in general, and then also because maybe employers are not willing to pay that premium to post jobs on a platform, unlike somewhere in the US. So how did you go about solving that issue, or at least staying open as a business and paying employees through that problem?
So I will answer that question specifically to Jobberman and then give a generic answer. So I capture a couple of other edge cases that didn't necessarily happen in Jobberman's case. In Jobberman's case, we were like super lean until we got funded. So being super lean meant we paid from our own pocket. So I had a fledgling web hosting business at that point in time. So that was enough. So I was pretty much borrowing the business money for a long time, right, until we got funded. When we got funded, those issues went away like immediately, and we were able to kind of scale our business, right? Let me also mention that Jobberman had never really had issues in paying salaries because it was not like we're not making money, but for the size of the brand,
yes,
compared to the revenue, right? So like, let me put it this way: Jobberman, by the time I left Jobberman, we had like 2 million users in Nigeria, 1 million users in Ghana. That's 3 million users combined. If you have a 3 million user business in the US in that same space, right? You should be doing nothing less than like maybe 20, $50 million in revenue, right? Per annum, right? That was not the case for us in Nigeria, right? Of course, we're able to pay our salaries. The flip side also is that in a market like Nigeria, the salaries are also much lower, But then some salaries are not necessarily lower. Like you still have to pay engineers, some top dollar regardless. You have to pay like your senior C-level executives top dollar regardless. So we never had a chance, a problem in paying salaries and all of that. So we definitely stayed afloat, but we just never built much of a business as compared to the brand, right? Everybody knows Jobberman, but
yes.
from a revenue point of view, it doesn't match up to the brand. That's what I meant. Now to the generic answer, if you're trying to build a product, right? And you have to like figure out like, hey, how do I handle the financials from when it's 0 to 1? The best way is to start lean or raise funding. Raising funding, it's a bit for startups. That's not really for a product manager, but so you can learn from that as well and apply to your own small team, because like even in a company, your small team, you need to defend your budget, right? For your small team. So the best way is to start lean as much as possible. That's one. Then validate as fast as you can, right? Don't say, hey, this is going to be super successful. Then you grow a large team and you realize that no, it's not going to be super successful. And then you have to scale down. So validate your assumptions as much as you can. So the way I treat product management today is every single step is a validation. I was talking about the fact that I'm working on a diaspora bank. We didn't start as a diaspora bank. We started as a platform. Now there's the fixed deposits, USD fixed deposits in emerging markets. But then for you to do that, let me say this: saving and investing means like almost the same thing, but it depends on who you are talking to. When you're talking to an HNI, you use the word investing. An HNI is not saving. It doesn't care about saving, right? Why should he save? He wants to invest. When you're talking to a student or someone that's just trying to kind of at the beginning of their career lives, right? You have to talk about saving, right? They don't have $10,000, $100,000 to invest, So I discovered that we're missing like a large part of the market. We're not providing a simple way for people to enter into our ecosystem, right? And then advance on from savings to investing. So we started to rethink our model, talk to more customers, and then we decided to learn better. And then we tweaked our model to get to that. But imagine if we had raised $20 million on that singular idea, and then you now realize that all the people that said we are going to invest, they're like, man, there's COVID, we cannot invest, So you just fail flat, So the learning there is validate as fast as you can before you spend too much. And then as you validate, you can pivot or change your model, revamp your model, refine your model over time. So that way you don't get to spend too much money. You just spend enough money for the stage, till you get to a point where you have it's what we call product market fit, where your product is fit for the market, and the market also loves what you're trying to sell, and then everything will be fine. Yeah.
Thanks for that, T. We do have just a few minutes left in this session, so I'm going to take some live questions. If you have any questions, please drop it in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and read some of the questions that we got as part of the form. So the first question here says, I currently work for Amazon as a business analyst and want to make a switch to product management. Do you have any tips or advice for this person? So they work in data in Amazon.
Good. I've seen a couple of scenarios like that where people are even working in large companies, but they don't know exactly what it takes to be a product manager. I think they have skills, but what they lack in most cases is product strategy. I'm currently mentoring like 2 people like that at Indeed. Same thing, like product strategy. You need to be able to sit on your own and say, what if I was asked to build a lawn mowing business for Amazon? How would I go about it? And answer the question from end to end, right? If you can do that, congratulations, you're on your start to become a product manager. When you asked earlier about what to do to prepare yourself for program management, I missed one part. Practicing product management interviews and scenarios is also a very good way, and there are a lot of scenarios. I was telling someone recently about like Amazon. If Amazon started to do lawn mowing business, right, it would be so great because they have all the data. They know how many people are subscribed to Prime on each street. They can price properly, and they can even deliver more value to even lawn mowers themselves, right? So they can deliver more value to both the provider of the business and to the person receiving the value. You get the point. But you need a product strategist, someone that will understand product very well to kind of like scope that thing and then bring the product to life, using all the resources you have at your disposal to bring the product to life. So people who are in companies today need to learn that, right? They can learn that by on their own, right? Or starting to network with a product manager.
Daddy, why are you calling me? I'm on a call.
Okay.
Daddy.
Well, maybe you can meet everyone.
Yes.
Okay. So okay. Let me continue. Yeah. So they can network with an influential product manager within the organization, and start like apprenticing with the person, getting to and do some small initiatives, getting to sharpen their edges around like, hey, how to think about how to define or design a product, right? Solving those business problems, moving beyond, this is my job, I've done my job, to how will I make this whole thing successful, and over time, after they get to learn those skills, they can then start applying for internal roles as product manager, or they can even grow within that role, right? So like, if you take a small thing on in your team and you start doing it, and the thing start morphing into like a life of its own as a product, you're technically the product manager of that thing you created, right? And then you can evolve it. So like a specific example for like an analyst is you do analysis, right? Maybe for a team. How can you think about what you do and kind of make that process more efficient for yourself and for others? Right? You might even actually work yourself out of a job, and that's also a very good thing in large companies. If you spend 10 hours doing the analysis today, build a tool or figure out a way where a tool could be built that helps to solve that problem in 5 minutes, and now you're jobless. But then you become a product manager of the tool, right? And you can now start expanding that tool to other teams, right? Start finding more clients, right? So there's even sales internally. You start finding more clients in other teams to use that same tool, and bam, you've converted yourself from an analyst to a product manager. So that's like a way to go about it for someone at Amazon. Yeah.
That is a great approach. I'm going to take this one. I think you've already answered it, but if there's anything else that you want to add on to it, are there any certifications that you would recommend as a product manager? It sounds like it's more of the skills and experience as opposed to certifications, but if there's anything that you want to add on to that.
If you're unsure, you can go to a product school. There's a lot you learn about in a product school, especially, I didn't like go in detail into like tools that are used today, into concepts that are used today, things like UX, that's user experience, thinking about design thinking, pragmatic marketing. I didn't go into detail, but those are the kind of things you can learn in a formal product. So thankfully we have those today. We never had that 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I think it's going to be an easier one. If you're not sure, an easier one, if you're not sure exactly what to do, you can go to a product school and learn. But certifications, Scrum, all those stuff, they don't really matter. You can also do a product owner certification, pragmatic marketing certification, but frankly, I've never seen any product interview that anybody cared about your certifications. They care about the product you built and how you thought through those processes and how you think through the exercises that they give you.
Definitely agree. And this is the last question that I'm going to take. Thank you, Tolu, for sending this. It says, if you have an idea that would eventually develop into a product, how do you protect the intellectual property of that product before sharing the idea with someone? Do you need to get a lawyer or write it down somewhere? How do you prove it is your idea? That's a great question.
Yes, but I hate to bust your bubble. From a product manager perspective, it's not a great question. So let me answer that. And the reason is because like product managers understand that innovation is not something you can bottle up, right? And also being like the first mover advantage doesn't really matter, except it's really like a strong innovation. And of course, like the market, at least the US market, supports like you patenting something and preventing anybody from being able to use it for the next 5, 10, 15 years, right? Yeah, which is good commercially. Product-wise, so it's not really, that's not a product question really. It's more around protecting your intellectual property. Yeah, go ahead, protect what you can protect. But then remember that even if you protect something, once you've launched it into the market, it's pretty much up for the taking, by anybody, except it's in like a protected area like drugs or some specific kind of innovation that nobody else can reuse if they're not licensing it from you, But yeah, so you can go ahead and protect it. But frankly, especially for like just ideas on services or products that's not like core technology, no one really cares. Even in the venture capital space, like a lot of people bring their deals to me, pitch decks. I tell them I can't sign an NDA because like I hear things like what you're going to share with me every time. Like I've thought about it, most likely I've thought about it before. I have a sheet of like almost 200 ideas. I've shared with a couple of people over time. Like idea is cheap. There's nothing special about an idea in most cases, right? And to really be a good product manager, you can't be like fixated on one idea. Like really, what if it doesn't work? So product managers don't care about ideas that much. Like idea is cheap. You can get an execution and strategy on how you take the idea to market is what's most important, So like, yeah. So that's my answer from a product point of view. But please, for all intents and purposes, if you want to patent your stuff, go ahead and patent it. No worries about that.
Yeah. All right. Moses, thank you for sending that question. We'll actually respond to you. I want to hand it over to Yewande to move on to the next section of this session. So we're going to be talking about tech in Nigeria and Africa versus US, and of course the state of unemployment, because if you want to come abroad or you want to be a PM, we need to make sure that you have the opportunity to get some experience in Nigeria and actually develop yourself before coming abroad or developing products for the international market. So over to you, Yewande.
Thank you, Moyo. So okay, I'm just going to start off with asking about your experience. You've worked in tech in Nigeria and Africa, and then now you're working in tech in the US. So how would you say that your experiences have shaped you? And then how would you suggest that our graduates who are from Nigerian universities or from Africa, how can they leverage their experiences back home to succeed in an international market? So it's a two-part question.
Great. Thank you very much. My case is kind of exceptional because I was a founder. I founded a couple of companies. I've invested in a couple more. Mm-hmm. So in terms of like breadth of knowledge in product, it was a bit stronger. And I joined Indeed, by the way. So it's like with all humility, like a walkover for me, like founder of the biggest job sites in Africa, Indeed. Like, yeah.
Same domain.
Exact same domain. So I had far more knowledge that was kind of easy for me to make that happen, right? So I wouldn't base this on my own experience. For others in general, it makes sense if you've worked on a product before. But if you haven't, it doesn't really matter. Like in general, I must confess, your Nigerian experience is always discounted when you move to the US. I experienced that too as well. So like when I joined Indeed, I started as a product manager, which frankly was far below my level, but I wanted to learn. I wanted to work within the construct of a large company and see how things work. Indeed is like 10,000 employees, I wanted to see how things work, but in less than 1 year, I was promoted to be a senior product manager, which is kind of odd, but of course it was like, oh, now they started seeing the value, but on paper, they couldn't like quantify it. As far as they're like, oh, we like you. We know, yeah, we've heard everything you have to say. We know you're great, but yeah, we're not sure. You get the point. Like, how much your business make anyways compared to billions of dollars that we make, So maybe the easiest way, and interestingly, Moses just asked that question on the Skype, on the chat, Zoom chat. Getting an MBA is like a shortcut but it doesn't make you like the smartest product manager, frankly. But then this is how the world works, right? MBAs have gotten 2 years or 1 year of thorough knowledge in strategy, economics, finance, entrepreneurship, innovation, and all of that. So they stand a better chance of being better anyway. So that makes sense for companies to go for MBAs any day, anytime. So yes, an MBA is a shortcut to getting the product. A top MBA, better. Getting a top MBA will even get you a product internship opportunity in like the top companies as well. So go as high as you can go. I always advise people, don't be telling yourself you go low. Go as high as you can go. I don't have an MBA, but I'm going to be getting an executive MBA soon and at the top school, right? Does it matter? Yes, it matters, right? Does it mean you won't be successful? No, but it matters, right? Go as high as you can go. Like, just cross all the boxes if you can. I guess, so that's the easiest way. The other way, of course, is try getting opportunities with companies internationally, where you can do some small work, product analyst, business intelligence analyst, and from that way, work your way up to becoming a product manager. There are also internship opportunities and also APMs, associate product manager opportunities that are come around in companies. I'm not sure of how remote that is, but I think definitely since the world is going more remote now, there'll be more opportunities for those outside of the US in that space. That's also another way to get into companies and start experiencing product. And once you start building up that experience, it's easier for you to cross companies and move into more full-time product manager roles.
Okay, thank you for that. So on that note, for those who are still based in Africa, would you say that there are opportunities for them to work with international companies while they are still in Africa? And how do they access those opportunities, if you're aware of any such opportunities?
Good. I'll do a bit of self-promotion here. So I led a product last 2 months. We started working on a project at Indeed. A remote jobs only project. So it's called WFA.jobs. WFA means work from anywhere. That's my first site that I'm building for Indeed, WFA.jobs, and it was an incredible opportunity for me because Indeed is Indeed.com, right? So very rarely does anyone get a chance to build a new platform from ground up for a large company, and I got that opportunity. So that's one of my works at Indeed, WFA.jobs. So self-promotion aside, by the way, WFA.jobs is still more around US jobs. There are a couple of jobs there that are open to anyone around the world, but we're looking forward to expand global. So now that I've sold my own market, there's also remote.com also has a lot of remote jobs globally. We work remotely. Also a couple of remote jobs globally as well. So you can check those sites out for remote jobs, especially remote product manager jobs. You find them there. Another good way is also to join like Slack groups for product managers, where you can network heavily with founders, with product managers, and then from there, start making your own connections and then get something out of there. I would say it's easier for someone to get work as a remote designer or remote software developer in Africa than to get work as a remote product manager. And the reason is because product management can have some context attached to it, right? And those contexts, in most cases, they are domain knowledge based, but there's also a geographical base to it. Like, even if you work on payments in Africa, payments in the US is far different from payments in Africa. Like, we're talking NIBS, USSD Nigeria, we're talking ACH, checks, and a couple of other things in the US here, right? So there's a world of a huge difference there in between both markets, so that's the challenge. But that doesn't mean there are no opportunities, but there are not a lot of opportunities. I should mention that as well, so I don't give anybody false hopes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. So I'm going to kind of take the conversation to the point of unemployment in Nigeria. Now, we've worked as a brand, we've worked with a number of people who are always looking, our base is primarily in Nigeria, and a lot of people are looking to leave. And we see that and that's to some extent maybe due to the high unemployment rates in Nigeria. But another challenge that we see is there's also a gap in terms of the skills that we have. So I went to a Nigerian school, and I can tell you that coming to the US, there was definitely a gap. I didn't know how to present myself. I didn't even know how to really write a good resume. I was lacking in certain things like communication skills, leadership skills. And these are things that you really need to be successful in an international market. So what would you say are your suggestions for, closing this gap in the skills that we see in our graduates, so that we were better positioned for opportunities? Because even if I wanted to go take that remote job, sometimes I need to communicate with my team members abroad. And if I don't have the basic things, then it might mean that I lose out on an opportunity. So how would you suggest that we improve on closing these gaps in our skills?
Now, that's a very great question. It's hard, actually. Yeah, it's like asking a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. But a couple of ways to go about it. One is to read a lot about culture culture in developed markets, work culture, learn a lot about that. Also improve your English if you can. I'm a call Yoruba boy. So even I don't have a US accent. I don't have an American accent. No matter how I try, I can't just fake it, But at the very least, what I've learned to do is like pronounce my words, one by one when I'm talking to Americans to just make sure they can hear me very clearly, And a lot of us in Nigeria, we just kind of speak, So there's a funny one that I used to like eat, right? That means the same to a Nigerian, But it's 4 different words, And if you're talking to Americans, don't have like huge bandwidth to understand different kind of accents. That's what I've noticed. So it's not your fault. It's mostly their fault, but because you're the one that wants to work with them, you're the one that needs to learn how to ask them that way, right? So you need to work on that too as well. And a couple of things that affect us in Nigeria also in terms of like behaviors that we've kind of adapted over time, that are not necessarily great, like punctuality, being open, right? Asking clarifying questions, right? And even when you're not clear or when you're having like work conflict, right? Fix a meeting, talk to the person, talk it through. No, we don't do that in Nigeria, Also civility, how you communicate, where you don't kind of give matching orders, but you kind of suggest stuff. We don't do that in Nigeria. When you tell someone to jump, the person has to ask how high in Nigeria. But you can't tell someone to do that. You kind of like using words like, hey, can you consider this option? Have you looked at things this way? Rather than say, hey, that is wrong, do this. So those are the kind of things that, unfortunately, there's no school that will teach you that in Nigeria. Today, that's why I said it's hard. I also think there's a part of you like being humble enough to know that, hey, I don't have all these things. So even if you get an opportunity, right, just do everything you're asked to do, or try and watch the people you work with and see how they do stuff and adapt very quickly, else before you know it, you feel like, hey, what's happening here? I just can't fit in, And I think every body that moves from Africa to US also feels the same way initially, but in a couple of weeks, if you're strong and you know what you want, you can adjust and adapt. So I guess adaptation is just the name of the game. There's really no school for you to learn those things. I'm working with a company in Nigeria and I'm trying to kind of get them to kind of prepare a curriculum around these kind of things, especially for software engineers, like, how to behave, and things like that. And I hope maybe over time there'll be more of those kind of content out there. But if I find anything on the internet, I will share. Maybe AIC can share with everyone around how to do that. But today there's just no structured way of doing it. So pretty much everyone is left to their own. But yes, adaptation is the name of the game.
All right, great points. So on that note, for those who are still back home on the continent, I think Moses also has a question around that. How would you say that, what are some steps they can take to getting a good job in Nigeria? So not everyone can leave and not everyone wants to leave. So if I'm back home, what do I need to do to ensure that I get a good job? What skills do I need to build? What do I need to know? And in the future, that opportunity might potentially help me get a job in the US.
Okay, good question. So there are 2 kind of good jobs in Nigeria. There's the legacy good job, Chevron, there's those ones, right? And they're thinning out, unfortunately. There are not a lot of opportunities in those spaces, and it's kind of hard to get in there. Also, people that go in there, frankly, don't necessarily get better career-wise. They just kind of grow within that company, and it doesn't make them like better. Like if they leave that company, they will most likely flop, so that's one challenge there. And there's the second kind of good job, the good job that actually trains you to be a better version of yourself. And each stage in that company is a step higher. So we're talking of like startups, we're talking of the banks. The banks have really evolved, and I'm not talking of cashier, I'm talking of like working in headquarters, working in regional branch, working in strategy in a bank. Actually, even if you're working in commercial operations in a bank, you still get to learn a lot, right? So there are those jobs now, right? To get those good jobs in Nigeria requires you to be good first. A lot of people still think it's about who knows who. Who knows who will always play a game. But before you get to the point of who knows who, you've got to have the skills, right? Skills include hopefully a good degree. If you don't have a good degree, doesn't really matter. You can get certifications, PMP, product owner certifications. Certifications are just basically build your knowledge base, right? Spend your time doing some side also entrepreneurial venture of your own as well. That kind of helps you also, like I mentioned, that build your product thinking muscle, or your strategy muscle, or pretty much your muscle around like being relentless, right? Paying attention, being analytical, and then you bring that back to an organization. That's that. Now, applications is not always the way. Do always apply for jobs, but networking is more important than applications, right? You have to do a lot of networking, talk to people, ask them for opportunities to have chats with them so that they can get a sense upfront of how you think and what value you can offer. And it's not all the time that you have to look for like all the really big companies. There are small companies that also pay well nowadays, right? A lot of small companies do pay well. So of course, think about the salary, ask about the salary, prioritize knowledge as much as you prioritize cash, right? But of course, always be on the lookout. If you get a job where you're learning a lot, but it's not a great salary, learn as much as you can and get out as fast as you can, but don't ignore those jobs. Some of the people I've worked with in the past, like in Nigeria today, they are earning, above 1 million. At least I know like people that have worked for me, at least 5, 6, 7, like 7 that have worked for me and they're earning above 1 million today, in Nigeria, in just like a space of 4, 5 years. I even know someone that's earning 3 million, right? And used to work for me in Nigeria. So like those opportunities are there. It's not impossible, but you have to learn as fast as you can, grow yourself. Let me end with this. In Nigeria, the people that get paid mostly are leaders. So you have to be able to be a manager to get paid very well. So all these skills I'm talking about are important. If you think you can just be a team member and get paid very well, except you are like a skilled person, a financial person, software developer, designer, or the like, it's not likely going to happen, So you need to quickly brush up your management skills and move to management roles as fast as you can. Age is not a factor. You can be a manager at 22, you can be a manager at 25, you can be a manager at 35. So move as fast as you can to be in a management position, right? If you want to earn high in Nigeria. So that's the last trick I'm going to mention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask my last question before we open up for questions. So I think central to all of this is that there's still a large unemployment issue in Nigeria. So how would you say for all of us, each of us, how would you say that we can contribute to that? How can we improve unemployment rates in Nigeria, Africa? Because irrespective of whether we're here or whether we're in Nigeria, it's still affecting all of us. So how can we improve this? And what are the opportunities for us to use tech to address unemployment and improve unemployment back home?
So unemployment in Nigeria, I spent 10 years working on that. I still continue to work on that. The reality is people are unemployed in Nigeria because there are just not enough jobs. It has nothing to do with the people themselves, right? If there are enough jobs, we'll find ways to skill the people to meet those jobs. There are just not enough jobs, right? That's the truth. And because there are not enough jobs, only the best survive, right? So you have to do a bit more than everyone else. It doesn't mean others are doing badly. Like I tell people, if you come to the US, you don't need to be special to get a good job. You just need to go to school. That's all, So, so people's life change just because they move from Nigeria to the US. Like that's just the only thing they need to do and their life change, But to be successful in Nigeria, there's just put in a lot of work. So that's, before I digress too much, because I'm passionate about that topic anyways, unemployment. So reducing unemployment for us, the way we can use tech, number one is help people get skills, either teach those skills, fund those skills, or provide those learning tracks for people to know that they can get digital skills. Digital skills will definitely liberate a lot of jobs locally and also internationally. With the world moving remote, digital skills are very helpful in getting jobs outside of Nigeria. And when I say digital skills, ranges from just being comfortable around using remote working tools to the actual digital skills. And actual digital skills will still start from like using Word, Google Docs, PowerPoint, Google Slides, Google Sheets, Excel, and things like that, right? To deeper stuff, being able to do some basic analytical work, some content work, social media work, to product management, to web development, to UI, UX, software development, and it goes on and up down the food chain, right? There's someone today that teaches my kids Yoruba. They do 2 classes every weekend, right? I did the math, right? She might be earning like 300,000 naira a month, and she could pretty much be in any part of Nigeria, right? I know the salaries university professors earn, right? That 300,000 is like how much a university professor will earn, and you can do that from anywhere, So those are things that we need to help teach people. And people need to, of course, understand locally that the jobs are not really there. There's just not a lot of jobs. You get it? So you have to kind of figure your own path. When you see a new opportunity, try and go down the line, see if you can create a living out of it for yourself, out of those opportunities. And if you succeed at doing that, stay with it, grow the course, and keep on going. Entrepreneurship is also another way. Though entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Entrepreneurship is hard, is bloody, takes a lot out of you, while doing it. But if it's something you want to do, definitely it's also another way we need to encourage people to go to tow that path.
All right, thank you so much, Akwe. That was very, very insightful. I hope everyone on the call, has taken a few points from all that you said today. Now we have about 5 more minutes for questions. We just received a question privately, so I'm going to kick us off with that question. This is from Coin. She says, I work as a senior manager in process improvement in Canada, but with 0 experience in product management. What would be your recommendation to build some experience or skill set in product management? Because I see that this is a relevant skill set in the light of the increasing demand on technology. So I know you've kind of touched on this before, but she really just wants to know how she can build a skill set in product management, considering that she has no experience in this area.
She said she works as a project manager, right?
Senior manager in process improvement.
Senior manager in process improvement, right? Okay, so this is interesting. A senior manager in process improvement, meaning you spend a lot of time thinking about processes and improving processes. Maybe the only challenge is you've actually never thought that you could build that process from scratch, right? So you have to start thinking beyond being a contributor in your team to what if I want to kind of recreate a competing process to this process? What if I want to build this whole company from scratch? What part of it am I going to try and do first? How am I going to do it? Those are like simple product scenarios you can create for yourself to kind of build your product muscles, like I said earlier. And then, of course, do courses. I'm saying courses in this case because I believe you are like already in a particular domain, depending on the company. So you can do courses that help you to learn more about that domain, so that you're not just seen as someone that has a PMP and that's why you're doing process improvement. You can be seen as someone that understands the business of the company in itself. I can imagine being a product manager at Tesla, right? And your job is, how do we make this car safer? You get the point. How do you think through those kind of motions, right? What makes a car safe? What are the technologies that can be used to make cars safer? What exactly means safe? How safe could it be? Could we be? How do we do the trade-offs between the car being safe and the car being slower? So those are the kind of things you learn. But then you need domain knowledge of the automotive industry, or just maybe even knowledge of science, of materials and materials engineering, right? To be able to do that in Tesla. So you have to think about what those learnings are in your own company and get those learnings so that you can be thinking more as a product person, right? In your company. So if you're able to achieve that, then try and get yourself plugged into a project that is just starting in your company. So you are doing some sort of unofficial APM, unofficial PM for that project, and toe that line, and you see the fact that interesting stuff are going to come out of it at the end of the day. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Okwe. Konya, I hope that answers your question. We have about 2 more minutes to the end of the session, so because we can probably take one more question. So if anyone has any question, please Okay, we just got one question, and this will be our last question, by the way. She says, what would be your advice to young graduates seeing that universities don't quite teach them how to deal with work life?
You learn it elsewhere. That's the simple answer. You learn it elsewhere. I've worked with a lot of people in the US, and I can tell you the challenge in education is pretty much everywhere. It's not just in Nigeria. It's just the fact that the cultural side of things, the nuances of working, being able to present, being confident in yourself. Those are the things that you get in the US. It comes as another advantage by just living here, right? But then the challenge is like, I worked with someone who, like, Chicago Booth, MBA. They're not necessarily smart, right? They fall short at the very basic of things, in some cases. So the answer is whatever you want to learn, you just figure out how to learn it elsewhere. Don't expect school to teach you a lot. School basically provides you foundations to be whatever you want to be in life, right? At the end of the day, what you become is up to you. Computer engineering, for example, will never teach you software engineering. I've seen computer engineers in the US, in Nigeria, in Tokyo, who don't know how to code and don't even understand the basics of software engineering, right? And they passed, in some cases, first class, So it's not a Nigerian problem, it's a global problem. What we teach in school is really different from what we do in the industry. So move as much as you can closer to the industry to learn what you need to learn.
Awesome. Okay, I know we're at time, but there's one more question that I want to take. Moses is asking, do you think that product management will continue to be prestigious? Or I'm guessing he means that, do you think product management will continue to be relevant? It seems like it's reigning, that was the term we use now, but it seems like it's the in thing now. But in 5-10 years from now, do you think that this is a field that will continue to be relevant?
Good. You're asking me a product management question within product management. In the sense that I have to think about the vision, the future of product management. Product management will be one of the few relevant, should I say, professions at the end of the day. And I will explain why, right? Skills are becoming overrated, and largely due to AI and other forms of technology, right? So if you know how to do accounting very well today, there's probably a software that already does your job, and I will continue to do your job. So at the end of the day, we all would have to either do two things: service work in the spaces where we still have service work, or knowledge work where you use just your brain and nothing else, right? And your logical reasoning to power these robots, to decide what, AI will test things for you. You can build models, but you need to know what to feed into the model, right? The product manager decides what to feed into the model at the end of the day. So I think all of us will become product managers, whether we call it product management or not, right? Even software, like I know of platforms today that you can build full mobile apps without even knowing how to code. You get the point. There are no code solutions, there are low code solutions. Designs. Yesterday, I saw a software that could convert design screenshots to HTML in web and also back and forth, right? Like, so who needs a UI designer anymore, or who needs a front-end developer anymore? But do you think the product manager, someone needs to think of, this is the problem I want to solve. AI is not going to do that for you, right? And that's exactly the work of a product manager, right? So I think product managers are going to last like forever, whether we call it product managers or we call it something else. But yeah, the guys who make the decisions on what the technology should do would always, the guys and ladies, let me correct that, would always be relevant.
All right. Thank you so much, Okwe. I hope that answers your question, Moses. But with that, we're going to round up the session. Thank you again for your time. I particularly enjoyed this. It was very eye-opening for me, very engaging, very insightful, and I hope that everyone else got the same from it. But thank you all. We're going to we'll record the session. We're going to upload it on our YouTube channel, and we'll send it to everyone who registered for the session afterwards. And you can always follow us on our social media channels. We are African International Circle on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And thank you again, Opey. Moyo, do you have any final words before we wrap up?
Nothing for me. Just thank you very much for your time. We would love to have you back sometime soon. I feel like there's a lot of insights that we can get, even beyond management. So join us. We'll talk after.
Thank you very much for having me. Glad to be here. Thank you to all those who attended, and I hope you learned a thing or two.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to wrap up the session now. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.